This episode of the Party Loaded podcast is proudly sponsored by Audible.com. Check out their awesome catalogue of audiobooks with over 180,000 titles to choose from. And be sure to grab a free audiobook on us and support the show by visiting audibletrial.com/endgame.
Let's party.
It is Video Games O'Clock, which means, more precisely, it is Wednesday evening on the 16th of January. This is the Party Loaded podcast, your one source for everything great in the world of video games. And let's start off tonight by introducing me. I'm Luke Retallick, joined tonight by all hands on deck. Well, no, some hands on deck. We got Matt and Christian. What's going on?
I'm here. Precisely 6 hands on deck.
Yeah. See? Yeah, okay, that's right. If you're referring to the appendages and not the peoples, that makes a whole bunch of sense. Yeah,
it's over half, unless one of us loses a hand.
Sure. Just as long as nobody wants us to give them a hand, I suppose. No, it's all good. So, slightly depleted crew tonight. I don't think he would mind us saying that Adrian has disappeared for the rest of the month because he's on his freaking honeymoon. So, congrats, man. I hope he has time to listen to what we're getting up to in the meantime, but otherwise...
He will not.
Yeah, I didn't expect he would. I wouldn't think he's obligated to. So, yeah. But, he's off having a great time, and Jam is off for a little bit as well, but we will be seeing her back as soon as she's well and able. So... But yeah, holy crap, guys, we've got a week of stuff to get through. We've had week 3 of 2019, and some shit went down this week.
Holy shit, the news section this week.
Yeah, it's it's been a ride. It's been cool. I'm getting sort of pumped about the fact that we're well into the pumping lifeblood of video gaming in 2019 already.
Yep.
Yeah, things are getting interesting. But before we get into that, I would like to throw to you two gentlemen to chat about something you did gaming adjacent during the week, which I'm super, super keen to hear about. So yes.
Yeah, gaming adjacent is right, because I think Matt mentioned you watched it a while back, but I just watched Black Mirror Bandersnatch, which is so if anyone doesn't know, Black Mirror is like the tech dystopian sci-fi show, and they put out like a special movie episode that's like a choose your own adventure it's like Netflix exclusive, and it's kind of like a Telltale game or a Life is Strange style experience where you're prompted to choose between binary choices at certain points during the game or movie, whatever you want to call it. And in true Black Mirror fashion, it descends into tech like phobia madness and has weird, twisted psychological elements and meta narrative and all sorts of shenanigans. And it's bizarre. And I don't know. I thought that it started, no spoilers, but I think that it started strong, but I think kind of maybe the nature of it has a weaker finish than I would have hoped, or because it has the branching narrative, it kind of feels like there's no solid conclusion. What did you think of it, Matt?
I would have to entirely agree. I think that as a Netflix experimental kind of choose your own adventure movie type thing, it's really interesting. But as a Black Mirror episode, it kind of fails at doing that. Yeah. Because I would actually say that it starts off with the kind of tech phobia style storyline, but then a lot of the time, depending on the options that you choose, that tech phobia storyline really falls to the wayside. And it feels like normally with a Black Mirror episode, there's some sort of message that it's delivering. And most of the time, it's not a positive thing that the message is. There's only been one episode that I can think of where that message has been something good. But in Bandersnatch, it's really unclear what the message was intended to be, because it just kind of gets lost among all those different endings.
I can tell you what the message was intended to be. The message was intended to be, get a Netflix account and watch it so that you can do all the interactivity instead of torrenting our shows, you bastards. That's the message.
I do think that it feels like it was an experiment rather than it being a solid idea, I should say. Yeah, like there was some paths in there. Like the very first ending I got was the Easter egg ending, and I thought it was hilarious. It was actually I really enjoyed that one. If you know which one I'm talking about, but there's a couple of other endings in there where they just don't really. They aren't really anything.
Yeah, some of them are just like endings for ending's sake, where like they don't contribute to any psychological like horror or any deeper meaning, like you're saying. They just kind of put in there to like fill time almost, or like to make it seem crazier, like wackier.
It's almost like it's got the directors sitting there in the room with you, and you tell them that you've made this decision, and they start telling you this ending, but they're trailing off because they're not really sure where to take it. That's literally how it feels.
Yeah.
With a few of the endings in there. Some of them are super strong, and there's some really, really great plot moments in there that are like, this is the sort of stuff that I love Black Mirror for.
Yeah.
And then there's a lot of other occasions where it's just like, I don't understand what the point was, what they were going for. So it's a real mixed bag. Like sometimes the endings are really solid Black Mirror style endings, and the other times they're not that good at all. So it feels like almost I would have preferred they just made Bandersnatch not a choose your own adventure type thing and just had a solid Black Mirror style ending. I would have actually preferred that.
Yeah. How many times did you guys watch through to get different endings?
Oh God, maybe. So that you don't have to rewatch from the start. It actually puts you back at key moments where you can change your mind.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, so if you get one ending, it will just kind of quickly replay the key moments leading up to that decision and let you re-choose it.
Right, but it won't show you like a choice map like you get in, say, Detroit,
no.
Like that. No.
So I ended out probably rewatching it. Well, by the time I finished watching it, I put in maybe 2.5 hours of watch time before I finally got end credits to play.
Yes.
Because if you get one of the endings, and the very first ending you get will not show the end credits. It feels like the end credits is the point at which it's like you've seen most of what Bandersnatch has to see, and that took me 2.5 hours.
Does that mean that there's a fail state then if you don't reach the end, or?
There are definitely like endings that are much sooner in the feature than you would expect. Like, but then again, the way that it handles it, it's kind of hard to say without spoiling. But even if you get an early ending, that's woven into the narrative in a way. Like when it throws you back, it has a kind of like time loop element to the narrative.
Right.
So, and sometimes the characters kind of, they act or know like they have done this before. So that's kind of a little spoilery. But there's no way of just getting a hard ending except for the credits, it seems.
Okay.
Yeah. And I will say that the ending that I got that played the credits felt like a good Black Mirror episode. Like, there was a narrative in there, and the narrative was, like, this isn't really spoilers, but it was basically this narrative about how you can never achieve perfection, is basically what the narrative of the best story that it has. But then there's other stories in there that are also super good, that are just like, there's no point to this other than it just being really cool or really funny.
Yeah. One last thing I wanted to mention, I like that at least it's self-contained. So unlike video games like the Telltale series, that they always tend to like have to end in the same place or end in a very similar place, so that the next episode everyone's at the same starting point, or with a couple of minor differences. This, at least, the endings branched out wildly. So because I almost felt like the episodic nature was holding back Telltale games, where you were kind of getting railroaded a bit at the end of every episode.
Yeah.
Like funneling you into like a handful of predetermined conclusions to lead on to the next chunk. Yeah.
I would also add, though, that like a lot of indies have done what Bandersnatch did, just without the movie quality, filming or anything like that. There's a lot of games out there that don't give a shit about continuity going into a sequel or anything like that. They will have massively branching endings.
And it reminded me of Stanley Parable and The Dark Room, actually.
Yeah, totally. I mean, but the remarkable thing about this is, again, it's pushing this kind of concept out into the mainstream of people who aren't necessarily gamers first. and drawing them a bit further into our hobbies. So I think for that, it's really, really cool.
It's definitely worth a watch.
One question just to sort of finish off the topic on, and this is a little tongue-in-cheek, but only a little. How long do you think it is going to be before feature TV starts getting QTEs?
Yeah,
Hopefully never.
Hopefully never, but I do want to see people experiment with this kind of thing more.
Yeah,
definitely.
I'd be all for it. Oh, that's super cool. I'm still yet to watch it, but I'll get onto it soon because I freaking love me some Black Mirror. Awesome show. Yeah, cool. All right. Well, speaking of things that are black, Matt, I had this strange sensation that settled upon me during the week where I felt compelled to play some Destiny 2. I don't know what brought it on. But, have you been jumping in and checking out any more Black Armory content? What's going on?
I haven't actually gotten to Black Armory yet, but I did hop in last week. And I'm happy to report that after having actually played a little bit with friends, that in the span of 3 hours, I gained like 30 levels, light levels. So that was really, really good. And also, I got some of the exotics from Forsaken, and holy crap, they're good. I unlocked all my subclasses, so I've been running around as the new Arc Warlock subclass, which is so good. It's like I'm a mobile Death Star. It's amazing.
Yep. Yeah, and I'm running that one at the moment as well. It's a load of fun. One thing that I did discover sort of jumping back in, where I was the same as you, like I've got a long gap to make up before I get to around the 600 mark where a lot of the new content is. I think when I logged back in, I was sitting at around 540, which means I've got quite a bit to go. And leveling up is definitely a lot quicker at the moment with the boost that they've put in to sort of jump people up a bit. But I like the Black Armory content itself was kind of cool. Like they've added a new section onto the tower or the where the Traveler is, that your sort of main hub is, called the Annex, and you can kind of explore that. And it's like a little hidden sort of bit. You go through a whole bunch of sort of back passages and gantryways and sort of corridors that lead down to this hidden area of that zone that you haven't actually seen before, and it's a little bit sort of labyrinthine, sort of getting down to it. But then you discover it, and it's there's this holographic wall that you sort of have to get through, and you've gotten a code from somewhere to actually do that already. It's part of the sort of story arc for this expansion. Now, when you actually get in there, you can see a whole bunch of the gear that you're going to be able to craft sort of later on in the Black Armory sort of DLC. But I love the fact that it was all sort of hidden down there, and they've done the smart thing and they've put a new fast travel point there, which I'm immensely thankful for. So
I did actually go and explore that area down there because, like, one of my favorite things about Destiny is the fact that the tower has so many interesting nooks and crannies just go and explore.
Oh, yeah.
And the Black Armory content they added is really, really good for that.
Yeah, there's got to be some more hidden Easter eggs down there somewhere. I'll look for them eventually, but yeah. So
for sure.
Yeah, one thing that surprised me though is like some of the content leads you to the European Dead Zone, where some of the forges for the armory apparently are. And there's some new sort of floating enemies around that are a higher level that you can defeat to get some Black Armory related goodies. Like some of them are required to unlock certain things and work on certain weapon quests and that sort of thing. But these enemies have got some really cool mechanics that I haven't seen much of in Destiny yet, which I think ratchets up the difficulty level, but without making it unfun. So there's these sort of mini boss dudes that are roaming around that have these shields on them that are powered by these little floating sort of things that sort of go all around them like a bit of a gyro. And you have to shoot the little sort of droidy things before you can actually pop the bubble and hurt the dude inside. But it only lasts for like about 10 or 20 seconds before they reappear, and then he's back in the bubble. So you have to be really sort of on the ball and precisely shoot them off or hit them with splash damage to sort of get them all off and damage the dude underneath. So I just think that kind of thing's really cool. Like I like how they've made stuff out in the open world a bit more interesting and a bit more challenging. Sort of with that.
I was actually like pleasantly surprised with so this is Dreaming City content. This isn't anything to do with Black Armory, but the whole weekly narrative drip that they've kind of got going with Marasov and feeding you more information about what's going on and this whole thing, like, so I had participated in that last week and I got a story snippet, and then I went and participated again this week. And so I'm coming in on the tail end of things, but I actually went and rewatched all the videos of just people showing like what has actually happened on this storyline during this season. And it's super, super interesting and cool.
Oh, the narrative is awesome. I'm
amazing.
Fully in. Yeah.
Yeah, but going in there and like, because last week your ghost chews out Mara, and then you go back this week and Mara chews out your ghost, and it is so good. Like, just really, really cool character development they've been doing over the course of a couple of weeks, and just I love that shit. It makes me look forward to what's going to happen in future seasons. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Don't worry though, Christian. I was playing Warframe at the same time too.
Good.
Get it all in. Yeah, I'm splitting the time.
I haven't seen your
between
mastery rank go up though, Luke. I want to see that number rise.
No, I know. I've been working on the same freaking suit for a little while. I got to make some progress on that. But yeah, look, some other things I did split my time with during the week. I'll just touch on briefly. The first one, which was a lot of fun, I just did yesterday actually, was I downloaded and played through the 30-minute, and I do mean 30-minute, locked time one-shot demo for the new Resident Evil 2. So for anyone who isn't aware of this became available, I think it was end of last week, and you can basically download for free this sort of demo area of the new remake of Resident Evil 2 in all of its glory. And you basically, once you commence it, you've only got 30 minutes on the clock to actually get through it. And it's just like a part of one of the sections of the game. The part specifically for anyone who remembers the original make of the game is when you're actually in the Raccoon City Police Department. So as Leon Kennedy, you've sort of just arrived on the scene and you have to navigate the major sort of police house area. And it's very reminiscent of being in the mansion from Resident Evil 1. Like some of the horror suspense mechanics are very familiar of that kind of zone. But holy crap, I wasn't planning on playing this game again in terms of the new remake. I've changed my mind instantly. This thing is freaking gorgeous, and they've done a lot of cool work on this. So all the puzzles are largely the same, like in terms of the major elements that you have to sort of go through and a lot of the big sort of positions where the zombies are, sort of predetermined to jump out and various different things happen. But they have changed it up a little bit, I think. Like, I'd have to go back and compare them side by side to be sure. But there's also the fact that, this is well over a decade later, so I've probably forgotten a whole bunch of that stuff too. So.
I know they have remixed a few things.
Yeah.
They've changed them up, yeah.
They've definitely kept it true to the original version of the game, though. Yeah.
I was going to say, one of the things that I had heard that they did that sounds just super cool is that they will ragdoll zombies when they're not dead, so you think they're dead, but then the zombies will get back up after you've continued on.
Oh, totally.
It's it's super, super smart at creating that horror. Like, I thought I dealt with you, and they're just having something coming back out. And that totally mixes up the game. It sounds more like a remix of the second game rather than just a remaster, and that's really neat.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, all new voice acting, all new animations for the cutscenes, which you get the full cutscenes in this demo. It seems to be everything that you would get in that section of the game itself. Super pretty. The big aha moment for me was there's a bit where you actually see a dude who's ripped in half, and seeing his guts sort of glistening and the level of detail they went into for that, it's extremely grotesque. But holy crap, it's detailed.
Yeah, that's one of the things they've been pushing is the internal anatomy of all their models and how advanced it is.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It is.
And for a horror game, I think it's important to really sort of push that as feeling of immersion, and this is going to nail it hard. It's going to be real good. So, yeah, the thing that I'd totally forgotten about Resident Evil games too is that unlike almost every other zombie setting, these zombies do not go down instantly from single headshots. I forgot about that. So. Yeah, you sort of put a bullet in one of their heads and think that you're okay and move past them, and you're like, nope, what? That thing's still moving. Crap.
I follow someone online who created 10 New Zealand PlayStation accounts so that they could have 10 tries at this as soon as it released.
Wow.
Yeah, they're the biggest Resident Evil fan I've ever seen, and they just, went nuts.
Apparently someone speedrun it in just over 3 minutes, which I don't believe. That sounds insane to me, but I don't know. Speedrunners are a different breed entirely, so who knows? Yeah. But no, it's cool. I would recommend it, and of course it's free, so that's the magic word for a lot of people. Check it out. You just download it off the... I'd got it off the PlayStation Store. I think it's available on Xbox as well. But yeah, the other thing that I played a bit more of during the week was Atlas, so I've jumped back in and done all the piratey sort of fun stuff. My impression of this game has risen considerably since last week. There is a lot of fun stuff in this game. The sailing is basically a case of what if, Sea of Thieves wasn't shit. So, the water in Sea of Thieves looks better. I'll give it that. But all of the sailing mechanics are probably just as good as Sea of Thieves. And the fact that it's in a fantasy world with a whole bunch of other cool stuff and crafting and adventure stuff to do just makes it a superior game already in terms of, the core gameplay loop, as far as I'm concerned. So...
That sounds like high praise, because I loved the sailing in Sea of Thieves.
Yeah, the sailing is almost functionally exactly the same. Like you still have to change the bearing of the mast. You still have, control of the rudder. You're still running back and forth. And, if you've got cannons on your ship, loading and firing them and all this other stuff. There's your ship actually levels up as you sail it around. So as you do stuff, it actually gains experience and gets, you can increase it in various different ways, make it more sturdy, give it more room for crew, all that sort of stuff. So that's really cool.
Yep.
There's lots of ways to customize it. And this is just the little sloop. Like you can buy... You can get bigger class ships actually built during the game. Like you actually have to build bases with, full-on ports to actually have room to build these things. Like you can create a full-on shipyard, in this game, which is cool. But that kind of comes down to the one big issue I've got with it at the moment. I'm playing on the official public servers. And despite the fact that they are absolutely giant in size, even though the game's only been out for, 3 or so weeks already, they are immensely populated. And actual ground to build on, like land, is at a premium in this game. And I was struggling to find places I could actually set up a base. So you plant a flag and that kind of claims an area of territory, and then you can sort of build in it. And you can't build outside. Well, sorry, you can build outside of those zones, but the stuff that you build decays a lot quicker if you put it down. And apparently there's a mechanic for you to be able to find someone else's flag and actually take it over if you can test it for long enough, and then you can claim any buildings that they've got in that area as well, which I don't know how I feel about that. I haven't actually done it yet because I couldn't work out how to do it, but that seems like a big pro and a con in terms of it being, a bit heavy PvP. So, yeah, but it also kind of solves the problem of an overpopulated server in a way, because if people drop off and, aren't on, then you can kind of reclaim that land. So maybe not a bad thing. So... but yeah, no, good fun. I've been enjoying it, and I'm looking forward to playing a bit more. So hopefully I can find a server that's not quite as crazy busy, though. That would be nice. But anyway, speaking of crazy busy, we've got some stuff to talk about. So let's get stuck in.
Now it's time to hear some gaming news. Time for some gaming news.
All right, news tonight. Christian, kick us off.
So we're kicking off with pouring one out for EA's cancelled open world Star Wars game. So EA have claimed another victim of their own, backyard.
What's the kill count at now? It's getting pretty long.
I don't know. And the Star Wars kill count in particular. So So this is the open world game that was announced alongside the cancellation of Visceral's game. So Visceral were working on a single player game helmed by Amy Hennig from Naughty Dog. But then she left EA. Visceral was closed, and they announced that EA Vancouver were working on an open world game. And then we didn't hear really much of it, and the attention's kind of been on Battlefront and that Jedi Fallen Order game. And then, now just today they announced that they've actually cancelled the open world one. So, pour one out.
Yep. Apparently they've done so in favour of a slightly quicker to finish and get to market Star Wars title, which is yet to be announced. So, who knows?
Their licensing deal with Disney lasts until 2023. So if this game was going to be coming out in 2022 or something, it would mean that EA Vancouver wouldn't be able to make anything else with the license. So maybe by making them work on a smaller title out in 2020, they'll have time for another game as well. So they're trying to sort of milk it for more than they were before.
Yeah. I would think that back at that original board meeting or whatever took place where they pitched the game plans to Disney to actually get the license in the first place, if they had have pitched what has actually ended up transpiring, I think they would have been laughed out of the room. So
most likely,
which is a real shame.
I imagine the pitch was less specific to the games and more, we are EA, we like money, you like money, let us make you money.
Well, it's very likely that they actually agreed to a certain number of titles that they would produce while they actually had the IP, and so the fact that they keep on cancelling stuff is not good. Especially if it basically means that they're making smaller titles faster. I don't envy whatever team that they were okay, well, we have to cancel this one, so we better spin up another one. That sort of pressure is not going to be good, unless hopefully it was spun up in the first place. But if they already agreed to doing a certain number of titles with the IP, I'm not sure what the agreement was exactly. If you give us the IP, we'll create this many titles for it. We won't just hold on to it and let it gather dust. Who knows? I mean, Star Wars is a sort of IP you want to create a bunch of shit for, so I don't know, but... it's just one of those things that we'll get into it with our major topic this week. But like, I get the impression with the sort of cancellations that have been going on that a lot of big publishers are just realizing that, hey, games are really big and expensive to make. And so there's a lot of big, expensive games just dropping off the face of the planet before they're completed. So,
yep, large brand recognition of something like Star Wars alone is no longer just enough. If the game is not good or if it's mired by other controversy like what happened with Battlefield, then it's still not gonna be what you want to satisfy your investors. So it's a dangerous proposition for them to engage in if they don't do it properly. Makes me wonder if the short-term sort of project that they're going to be able to turn around a lot quicker is a mobile game, given what happened in recent times with the Command & Conquer franchise. So would not put it past him. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, which would be a shame. But all right, so in other big news that sort of broke across the week, Division 2. So Ubisoft have come out and said, following on from recent themes, we are not bringing Division 2 to Steam. We are going to be launching semi-exclusively on the Epic Store. So
this is creating quite a division.
Yes, an epic one, in fact.
An epic division.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I think this is the point where, despite what's already happened with regards to the Epic Store picking up, I was going to say a lot of steam, but that totally crosses the thing again. Picking up a lot of momentum. This is kind of one of those major turning points, I think, because not only have Ubi said that Division 2 is coming to Steam, but a number of other yet-to-be-announced games throughout the rest of the year and beyond are also going to be launching on the Epic Store semi-exclusively, and that they have zero plans at this time to actually launch those games on Steam. So, now it should be noted that semi-exclusively means that they're still going to be available on their own launcher. So, the Ubisoft launcher... Uplay? Yeah, that's the one. So that actually has like an online store and you can buy the stuff on there. I think I own Division 1 on Uplay because they had some additional kind of bonus stuff that you could get on that. So for some reason I thought that would be a good idea. It worked out okay, I guess. So yeah, but man, I think Epic are having a strong run at the moment. They need to keep this up to keep things going. Fortnite's not going to be around forever. So, the thing that they can, get working on now as quickly as possible, they need to start getting this stuff happening. So
if it's a sign of things to come, then I'm really, really excited. Like the fact that a big company like Ubisoft is actually backing Epic in this matter, that's really, really cool. I'm just hopeful, like everything moving over to Epic and Epic having a really good split is great, but we haven't really seen much yet about how do games get to the front of the store and that sort of thing. Like, is it all hand done? Are they just relying on an algorithm like Steam is? Like, that sort of thing, for me, will make or break whether or not I end up basically being like, well, I'm going to use Steam less and Epic more, basically.
Yeah.
So
it's still going to be that big sort of question for the players. Like, the what's in it for me for the developers is very clear because the financial benefit is there. But the what's in it for me for the players comes incrementally as more and more things go over there because it's where are my friends playing games. So, yeah. But yeah, in terms of continuing to compete with Steam as well, Epic have revised their refund policy and they've actually now changed it so that it essentially matches what Steam offers. So that's basically 2 weeks from purchase and less than 2 hours played. You can get your money back for any reason for a game that you've bought. So extremely consumer-friendly refund policy. Steam went through the ringer actually getting that one out in the first place because of all the various different legal controversies and different markets that they were sort of getting caught up in terms of not offering refunds, in line with various different regions' trade laws. So they got there the hard way, and Epic now are getting there quicker to kind of compete. So, yeah, which is good. I don't mind that level of refund policy at all. I think it's quite friendly. So, yeah.
Cool. Well, in more news, and speaking of Epic news, I suppose in a way, if you think it's really, really cool, which I do, Bungie's split off from Activision. So Bungie is now an indie.
This was the mic drop moment of the week, really.
Yeah, no kidding. Like the number of people. So there was actually a video of the meeting that took place that apparently some people have seen. I don't know if it's actually online, but where the Bungie head basically announced that they were splitting off of Activision. And the development team at Bungie were screaming and shouting with excitement. They were that happy to have split off from Activision. Mm-hmm. So that is fairly telling. There's been a lot of really, really interesting videos online. Like, if you've not heard of Bellular, I would actually suggest looking up his videos and watching. But he basically talks about his theory about what was going on with Bungie and Destiny and the sort of friction that was happening between them and Activision. And this also ties into the sort of things that we've been seeing with Blizzard. But the fact that when Bungie signed the deal with Activision, there were very, very clear milestones that Bungie were expected to deliver Destiny content to them at. And so the theory that Bellular had, and it makes total sense to me from a development perspective, was that Bungie would have been way more focused on delivering stuff for those milestones than focusing on actually making the content in the game better based upon player feedback.
Yeah.
And so them splitting off has probably given the Bungie developers a lot more freedom to do their own thing. But it's also worth noting that NetEase bought a majority share in Bungie. And if you know who NetEase is, then that may not be a good thing.
They've been popping up all over the place, NetEase.
Yeah. Like, so Blizzard and NetEase are working the Diablo game, I think, aren't they?
Yeah, they are.
Like,
Yes.
Yeah, and so who knows how that's going to work out for Bungie, but yeah, there's no knowing what NetEase are doing with that majority share inside of Bungie, but Bungie have the money now to go off and make more good shit for Destiny. And speaking of good shit, so Bungie opened this thing inside the Black Armory, this big puzzle that players were expected to solve in order to actually unlock the next stage of content. And so it was this experiment that they were doing, basically, like actually gating content behind a big event. And it was timed, so at a certain point, it would just basically self-solve and everybody would just be able to walk into that content without solving the puzzle in the first place.
Yeah, it's worth mentioning this is like what they did for the raid on Forsaken's launch, where it's a case of as soon as someone finishes it, then it opens for everybody. So
yes.
Yep.
Well, apparently the intent was that it would open for everybody, but you would still have a certain amount of time within which you could also go and do the puzzle. So everybody could have that experience if you got there within the time period.
Oh, I think they've just left it in the game like perpetually because there's achievements linked to it now. So
yes,
yeah,
exactly. So when they opened up the puzzle, it was completely stumping players, and it's worth noting that there were multiple live streams going where people were watching, and the sort of shit that was going on. The big problem that a lot of the players were having. Well, actually, no, I should say it's the second biggest problem that most of the players were having because the story goes deeper. But they were overthinking all the puzzles just way too much. Like, there was basically this one puzzle that was like a French word for forest. And this word turned up a lot in Arthurian lore. And all these players are overthinking this puzzle massively, running around and trying to work out, okay, so what sort of Arthurian lore reference can we come up with? The actual solution was to have 3 players stand on a moon symbol and shoot the tree symbols because it's a fucking forest. Like, it was so straightforward. But then the second problem was that apparently one of the puzzles, text was supposed to appear to give players a clue about what they should do next. Ooh. And it was bugged and didn't turn up. So there's going to be a QA tester over at Bungie that's going to be getting their ass kicked right now for not catching that one, because that is a bug that everybody doing that puzzle will have experienced. But they basically opened up the forge. They basically said, look, the puzzle is still there if you want to do it and everything, but we've been sitting here watching you suffer. We don't want that. They basically said it was an experiment and, you know, they feel like it hasn't had the sort of result that they wanted, but they really appreciate the fact that players were sticking with them while they were experimenting and trying new things. So all in all, like Bungie, in terms of like their player management, I'm always super impressed by them. You compare them to like Bethesda or Blizzard on a lot of occasions, and they're really like they interact really well with their community. I really like it. So yeah.
So what do you think that sort of post Activision Blizzard Bungie with Destiny will actually look like? Do you think? I mean, it's kind of interesting to think about what elements of Destiny 2 as it stands might have been heavily influenced by Activision, and I guess we'll never really know. But what do you think will change moving forward? Like, what do you think if we see a Destiny 3 announcement at some point in the next 12 months? You know, what's that game actually going to look like compared to what it does now? That is the Activision element. do you think?
Should we cover that in the main topic, perhaps?
Yeah, maybe food for thought. I think that's
for sure.
a big talking point. Cool.
Just one other thing to run through tonight in the news. It looks like there's a leaked, or more like some data mined information about the Nintendo Switch Online service that somebody dug up. They found references to a bunch of Super Nintendo titles somewhere in the Switch online code. And so, there's heaps of stuff on there, a lot of which was on the SNES Mini, but there's some, like, including Star Fox 2, which is interesting because at the moment, the Mini is the only way anyone's ever been able to play Star Fox 2. But yeah, and also some other games like Demon's Crest and, Luke, I'm sure you're a fan, Breath of Fire 2.
Fuck yes, best JRPG ever! So good. I love that game. Yeah, I was disappointed that was not available on the Mini, which, I guess was probably likely to be the case anyway. But I've been wanting a way to play that game again ever since my childhood, and holy shit, if this is true, I'll be a very happy man.
I've had Breath of Fire pop up in my newsfeed a bunch of times recently because Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen just got announced for Switch as well, which is like a Capcom open world fantasy RPG, and the internal team that made Dragon's Dogma, they have legacy that they made Breath of Fire back in the day. And it's actually the same team that's also making Devil May Cry 5. So, yeah, I've had Breath of Fire pop up in reference to that a couple of times. So I've never actually played it, though.
Yeah, never have. Breath of Fire 2 and 3, both fantastic. 2 is my preferred one out of both of them. But, man, both awesome games. Seriously, seriously awesome. If
this list ends up coming to the Switch Online service, I'll definitely pick it up. Well, it'll be free as part of it, presumably, if it's the same as the NES ones. So
yep, exactly. Filling it out with a nice list of games now. So reminds me I've got to get into play a bit of Blaster Master at some point.
Yeah, they could even add some online elements to some of these games as well, because they've done that for the NES ones. So like Super Mario Kart or.
Well, a bunch of the sort of heavy story ones have had those versions added where you get like a head start in them.
Yes.
Where you can sort of start the game with extra. It's almost like a New Game Plus kind of thing. With starting with a whole bunch of the equipment that often just requires grinding to get to. So people who want to go back and experience games from their childhood without having sort of to go through all of it and just get the best bits, I think it's a really good alternative for them. So yeah,
it's a good idea.
All right, so to round out the list of topics tonight for news, we've got one last one, which has been a long time coming, and finally the switch has been flicked. Rocket League now has full cross-platform play, including PS4. So they finally got there. This, I think, makes it the second game that has complete cross-play support on the current-gen PlayStation platform. Fortnite being the first one, obviously, because of the huge outcry over that game when it all went down. But yeah, no, I think a lot of people suspected Rocket League would be the next one in the hopper, and it is. And now they just need to get moving on a few of the other titles. Minecraft, I think, is the one that really screams out for this treatment. They need to get onto that. So
I'm just going to point it out, though. Technically, Rocket League was the first because way back there was that bug where Xbox players were playing with PS4 players.
I remember that.
Yeah. So technically it was the first. It's just now it's the second officially.
You say bug. I say vigilante initiative.
I would not be surprised in the slightest. Honestly,
it's like the Deadpool movie trailer sort of test footage leaking. Ryan Reynolds had nothing to do with that. Oh shit! All right. Well, anyway, that's a whole bunch of cool stuff. Now we're going to move into the main topic for tonight, which is one that I'm super excited about. So around 12 months ago, I think it was, give or take a week, back in the beginning of 2018, we did a little topic which we're going to revisit tonight in a new evolved form. So we call this one Armchair CEOs. So if anyone caught that show from back a year ago, we spent a episode putting ourselves into the driving seat of some of the biggest entities in the video games industry. At the time, we covered Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo, of course, the triumvirate. and talked about what we would do if we were in charge of those operations at that point in time, sort of some of the decisions we'd make to fix existing problems, push forward with things they're strong at, deal with some of their weaknesses, and just generally sort of address some of the things that a lot of people feel about those different companies. Now, tonight, because we've already covered those three previously, and because we'll probably have more to say about those three in particular, maybe mid-year, where we've had a bit of E3 action and we find out what the heck Sony's up to. So tonight, we're going to talk about some of the other sort of major to medium-sized publishers. So on the list tonight, we're going to be covering a bit of chat on Bethesda, on Activision Blizzard, on Ubisoft, and on EA. So now that's in no particular order, but fuck it, let's start in that order. Let's talk some Bethesda. Because, man, this is certainly off the back of events in 2018. Still a fairly hot topic.
Yeah.
So, all right, we've all got some ideas. So, open floor, gentlemen. Who would like to dive in first and take the reins for the first part of the convo?
I'm more than happy to hop in. Yeah, I was going to say, like, the big thing that Bethesda needs to do is to stop being cute about it and actually fix their QA process. like that's the big thing. Because it was at the point with Skyrim when the game is actually open and it's everybody can jump in and mod it and everything like that, no problem. But it's a real problem now with Fallout 76 and the fact that the game is buggy as hell and the only people that can fix it are Bethesda. It's well beyond the point now of being cute. It's just ridiculous. And I think that a lot of people that were huge fans of Bethesda are just at the point now where it's like, look, we know Bethesda games are buggy, but this is ridiculous, right? For me, that's really the core thing they need to go and change moving forward. Certainly with Fallout 76, they need to state their intent and show that they are actually going to maintain and resolve a lot of the issues with it. Because if they don't do that, they are going to have a lot of people even more pissed off, especially the people that have already stopped playing, right? Because they'll probably be watching it and, they're probably Bethesda fans. They're keeping an eye on things, making sure to jump back in if they can. They can probably rely on Starfield and Elder Scrolls to make them a butt ton of money, but that's really long term. That's not going to happen in 2019. And, Bethesda's core, they're strong. They've got a strong audience of core gamers, right? They're not going to ever expand outside of that. I don't think they're ever going to get gamers that aren't core gamers on their games, typically. I don't think they're interested in doing that. The average consumer just would not tolerate their bullshit, quite frankly. I can just imagine, grandma going and picking up Skyrim to play it, and the moment that it was buggy and everything, she would just not care about going and downloading mods to fix it. Bethesda just needs to be better.
That's a really effective summary. Oh shit!
See, I've got one big thing on my wish list for Bethesda on how I think they should get better as well, and that is I think they need to commit and they need to bite the bullet and they need to get off the creation engine.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's
Hell
abandoned.
yes.
Yeah. So next Elder Scrolls, Starfield, I don't care how far into development you are, as stupid and unrealistic as that is, get off creation engine. Hook them up with Frostbite or CryEngine or something else and make it in that. And yeah, because I think that's the source of a lot of their problems is creation engine at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's almost like you just read the last page off my notes, Christian, because that was kind of the exact thing I was getting on as well. I think Bethesda at the moment have, they've had this really crafty Wizard of Oz operation going on for the last few years, where they've had this curtain draw situation where everything in front of the curtain has been super whiz bang production, high quality, stage show. In terms of all of the shiny, awesome new games and, publishing partnerships and stuff they've got. But if you look behind that curtain at the inner workings of some of their core franchises, that's where the problems lie. And that's where the creation engine is currently sitting there in a festering pile. So, but Bethesda, image-wise, a lot of really good stuff has been associated with them in recent years. But if you look at it with a bit more care, a lot of it's not actually core Bethesda doing the development work. So when you look at huge successes like, Wolfenstein and Doom, that's the id Software partnership stuff.
Yeah.
Arcane with the Prey content. And, Prey, all things considered, has done pretty well. And the latest DLC for Prey Moon Crash is actually really fucking awesome too. So
And Dishonored as well.
Dishonored, absolutely.
Yeah.
You also got Tango Gameworks with the Evil Within stuff as well. So they're partnered with Bethesda. All that stuff's done decently well. I mean, it's certainly, Evil Within hasn't set the world on fire, but it's not been a controversial release in terms of it being poor quality or anything either. So it's been good, solid content. But when you look at all the core Bethesda stuff, you've got your Fallout 4 controversies. You've got, Skyrim, fantastic, huge success of a game, but that's carried them far forward about as far as it can go. I think they need to sunset that. I mean, the tongue-in-cheek stuff still going on, of course, like the Skyrim on Alexa thing at E3 last year, and that's more of a nod to the humor of it than anything else. But man, the core stuff is just not. When they say, and they have actually confirmed this, that they're looking at building the next Elder Scrolls and Starfield on the same game engine as what the Elder Scrolls 3 was built on, that is something that really impacts the level of confidence consumers have in the company. It's time for them to do exactly what you said, Christian. They just need to rip the Band-Aid off and move ahead. So
the weird thing is they almost wear it like a point of pride. Like, because in the No Clip documentary on Fallout 76, somebody from Bethesda is talking about how they are using that engine that's been around since Morrowind, and he's saying that, sometimes he'll be digging around in the code somewhere and he'll see like a reference to something that's like 15 years old and he'll be like, wow. And then, but I'm like, that's not a good thing. Like, no.
I will actually argue, so this is me playing devil's advocate and not saying it's a good thing, but the last time a major company went and swapped engines, we ended out with Mass Effect Andromeda.
Right.
But the engine wasn't the problem in that game, Matt.
The engine was
for animations and stuff.
It was absolutely part of the problem. They had swapped to an engine that they had to basically remake a lot of those core systems for. I think that Creation Engine can be saved, but they need to actually put work into it. Like, they've maintained it for this long. It just depends on, I haven't actually gone into the guts of the Creation Engine, but I could see there being the possibility of it being just brought forward. But at the same time, if it's at the point right now where a lot of the bugs that people keep on having, from literally that exist in Fallout 4 and Fallout 76, the exact same bugs, they clearly aren't actually working on the Creation Engine as much as they should be.
Yeah.
Those are the first things that should be getting fixed going forward, so you don't have repeat bugs from game to game. That's just insane.
I also don't think it's just a technical problem. It's also an image problem, because now any issues that the games have moving forward with sort of, technical glitches or bugginess or the same sort of stuff we've seen in recent titles, people are going to associate that with the Creation Engine regardless of whether that's actually the truth or not. So I think that the whole situation is actually very similar to what happened to Telltale games in recent years before they imploded. So, a lot of people were looking at the recent Telltale titles being really sort of buggy and glitchy and putting all of the blame almost exclusively on the game engine, sort of saying that they needed to update that so that the company could start to produce good games again. Now, we found out, of course, after the fact that was only one piece of the puzzle, and there's a lot of sort of culture and studio stuff going on behind the scenes, which was, really spoiling the broth as well. But it doesn't change the fact that in order to get people back on board with them, if they had have made a grand gesture of actually changing that core thing that a lot of the ire is being directed at, then they probably could have won people over. So yeah.
I do think that engines quite often get the brunt of the blame, and quite often have a bad name among gamers in particular. Like the number of indies out there that have shit reviews on Steam because their game was made in Unity are just obscene.
Yeah.
But it's what you do within that engine that matters. And clearly Bethesda aren't doing the right things within their engine, or the engine is just so deeply flawed that they need to dump it.
Because I mean, even when you can improve an existing engine, there's got to be times when it is easier to achieve something by swapping engine. So Bethesda seem to have put so much effort into trying to improve the lighting for Fallout 76 and things like that. Even the whole online concept, Fallout 76 is basically an experiment of how can we put online in Creation Engine.
Yeah.
And And like, if they just used an engine that has that like compatibility already, then like
there's going to be a lot of stuff that they would have to remake. It would never be as simple a justification as, well, this thing does this better, so we should clearly swap over. Like, even when I was working with Stirfire, swapping from Unity to Unreal, there's pros and cons to both. We can't just say Unreal looks better, so we should just swap to it. So I actually do agree with you guys. I'm just saying that it's a lot more complicated than just Frostbite is a better engine, so why are you still using Creation Engine?
Totally.
They would have to remake all of their RPG elements inside of Frostbite, and that would be a huge, massive undertaking that would potentially take them years. And then you're basically banking on that stuff working within that engine, which is what, again, happened with Mass Effect Andromeda. They wanted big open worlds that were randomly generated within the Frostbite engine, and they spent years trying to make that happen and then failed. Yeah. And that just cost them so much development time and so much money, and it just turned out that the engine just wasn't capable of it. It's probably inside of Bethesda, the devil they know versus the devil they don't, right? They probably are developers in there that hate the Creation Engine. In fact, I'm 100% certain of it.
Yeah, I think they're at that point now, though, where they do need to commit and bank that time in order to move ahead. Because it's crunch point now. Like, they can't keep skating by on what they've been releasing lately, because that's just going to damage their brand even worse, sort of moving forward.
Yeah.
So,
I agree. I do agree.
The question arises, like, do you guys think that Bethesda will actually have a full stage presentation at E3 this year? Do you think that they're actually going to be ready for another round? Or do you think they will sort of go a bit more dormant and keep on the down low until they're ready to show off some spectacular stuff, as opposed to, a half measure in the meantime? What do you think?
I think they will.
You think they will? Yeah?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm very certain they will, if only to show off more of Rage 2.
Yeah, true. I think they're probably going to push some of their big releases to the back half of the year and make it a big song and dance. Yeah.
The Bethesda development stuff, I don't see them showing much of or talking about much, but in terms of Bethesda publishing, I expect there's going to be a lot of stuff they're going to have this year.
Yeah, and they've got some fucking sweet games coming out in that group, so that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
I just think to myself, though, like, I'm a little sad. I think, how good could games like Fallout be if, say, they existed on the id Tech 6 engine? Holy shit, that would be amazing. So, well, it's not to be. Anyway, so yeah, Bethesda's super interesting one at the moment. They've got some ground to make up after last year, though. That's for freaking sure. All right, well, let's move on then. Let's chat a bit of Activision Blizzard next. So this is another fairly meaty one after some of the comments that we all made at the close of our party favorite selections last year. And some of the recent events, such as the Heroes of the Storm implosion that occurred just before Christmas. So, yeah, what do you think Blizzard? I mean, it's Activision Blizzard. I'm just going to say Blizzard because it's a lot less of a mouthful. We know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So,
ActiBlizz.
Yeah.
I think with Activision Blizzard, it's so much a case of what I personally want not being perhaps business realistic.
Oh man,
compared
I feel you. I totally
the
feel
reason
you.
why they're making the decisions they're making. Like, I get it from like an investor standpoint, but like, I want them to just not make mobile games, just make an like awesome Diablo 4, make I don't know, get back to what they used to be, which was there used to be a standard associated with a Blizzard game where if it came out, then you knew it was going to be like new and exciting and high quality and polished, to a sheen. And there was a real recognition there, and I think that's being tarnished. And I just want them to get back to those days.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think the biggest issue that Blizzard faces at the moment, and this is kind of represented by the controversy that we've had around the at some point approaching Diablo 4, is I don't think it's actually necessarily Diablo 4 that people need. People want out of Blizzard the next big thing. It doesn't necessarily have to be Diablo, but it needs to be some sign that they've actually got some sort of major new project or something really remarkable to look forward to on the horizon. That indicates that they're not just stagnating in all areas at the moment. Because that's kind of the problem. Like, every other sort of major game line they've got currently is in a state of stagnation to varying degrees. So, StarCraft, nothing happened with that at the moment. World of Warcraft, again, while they have just had another big expansion in the form of Battle for Azeroth, and they'll no doubt announce their next WoW expansion later this year, they're in this pattern now where I think everybody understands that WoW has kind of had its heyday. So it's not necessarily going away anytime soon, but I don't think we're ever going to reach the heights that we had around, the previous sort of, 5-6 years ago when some of the bigger expansions hit. So it's going to slowly over time, gradually decline, and if they do their job well, it'll take a lot longer for that to really sort of go. But I think it's going to happen inevitably. You can't, continue working on a game that's this old, that's going to have, an outdated look and feel and mechanics compared to stuff that, is coming out a year after year and expect it to stand up to that. I just don't think you can. The Hearthstone's got its own issues at the moment. Christian, I wanted to sort of bring something up which I'm not sure if you're aware of, because around the cuts made to Heroes of the Storm recently, there was an email that actually did the rounds to a select number of people in the Hearthstone global community this week, and it got a lot of people talking out of a sense of fear that something similar.
The survey, right?
Yeah, the survey. So just for anyone who's not aware of this, basically the crux of the survey was that Blizzard sent out a survey which asked a bunch of questions around Hearthstone and the current game experience and what people were thinking about it. But there was one key question that got a lot of people really nervous, which was if there were no Blizzard-sponsored Hearthstone tournaments, how likely are you to play Hearthstone in the next 30 days? So now, given that esports for Heroes of the Storm has pretty much just wrapped up in an official sense, people getting real nervous about other games sort of getting the same treatment of cost cutting on the Activision side. When you send out a survey to your player base and a question like that is included, regardless of whether that's indicative of what they're planning to do, that is still fairly fear-inducing amongst the player base.
Yeah.
So I think that was a super bad move asking that personally. Yeah.
I think I mentioned it a couple of weeks ago how they've completely restructured Hearthstone esports for 2019. So instead of having everybody eligible to compete on the same sort of level from anywhere in the world. If you put in the hours and got the monthly finishes, you could go to the playoffs. Now the top level of Hearthstone esports is invite only. So they're getting the top streamers, the top personalities to be the top competitors. Then there's a lower tier that everyone can play in, and then a select few plebs will be able to join that Mount Olympus tier. And it's very clear that it's because they want, the streamers and the personalities are where the viewers are. So when they have a Hearthstone tournament that's for, relative no names, nobody wants to watch that. But if it's for streamers that everybody loves, then people are going to tune in. And if this year is a success for them, if people love this new format, then I think Hearthstone esports will be fine. But if this year doesn't pan out how they want, then I would totally imagine it gets the axe next year.
Yeah.
That scares me. That really scares me. I don't know. Other games too, like Overwatch. What's happening with Overwatch? We're getting the
holding pattern.
Yeah, we're getting this trickle of new maps and characters every so often, but they kind of need to do something a bit more remarkable of Overwatch to really sort of push it ahead. It's almost like they need to release like a proper Overwatch expansion that expands upon the game in a major way, similar to what they've done with Diablo in the past. That would be really cool.
I would actually not be surprised if that was something they were working on, because one of the last things that happened when Overwatch was active was they hired that new writer for the Overwatch team, and then it wasn't long after that the things just kind of went really, really quiet. So it seems like, so comparing it to Destiny has their live team and they have their core team, and their core team are working on expansions while their live team are making sure that there's constantly a trickle of content that's happening into the game. I don't know how Blizzard is structured in terms of Overwatch, but it seems almost like their live team has run out of things to do and their core team is doing something new.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be surprised at all if that was some Overwatch expansion or some big new game mode or something like that. Overwatch, given all its characters and all the story that's actually in there, it would actually be really neat. And I think they kind of experimented with this. But it would be really neat to actually have like a cooperative multiplayer story mode for Overwatch, basically.
Oh, hell yeah.
Like that would be really, really cool. And if they developed it right, they could totally use those maps for multiplayer and everything, in the same way that, there was the robot event that they did a while ago, which was incredibly fun. Yeah, I think that would all work really, really well for them.
They can still make that competitive in a multiplayer sense as well. Like it could be time trial type stuff or any manner of flavors. So, yeah.
Yeah, but I think if I was in charge of I'm going to call them Blizzard Vision, I would not go and hire a CFO for $15 million at the same time that there's news coming out that all of our developers are being offered severance pay if they decide to quit now.
Oh, fuck
I think
me.
that's a really, really bad look. Like, they're clearly penny pinching, and then at the same time, they put on somebody for 15 million. Just come on, Blizzard, Activision, Blizzard Vision. Yeah, anyway.
I thought the Penny Arcade comic this week was hilarious, dealing with the Bungie split, sort of, being like a roaring, fire, Activision being like a roaring inferno, and they've gone in and rescued Bungie, and Bungie's like, no, I can't leave just yet. Blizzard's still in there.
So I'm gonna say it right now. Blizzard's not leaving. Like, there's a really good comparison that somebody did. Like, Bungie was as connected to Activision as, like, getting a bowl of rice and sprinkling some peas on top. Like, it's actually really easy to pick those out. Yeah. But Blizzard and Activision is like taking Activision as your rice and then pouring the Blizzard sauce all over the top of it and then trying to pull Blizzard out of that. Like, it's just not going to happen. Like, it's not going to happen. But Blizzard, I think, are actually the company in there, between the two of them, that has the most power right now, because Activision has no IP. Like,
other than Call of Duty.
Other than Call of Duty, they have no IP. There's nothing that Activision is doing that's remarkable, but Blizzard still has all that core stuff. And while they've been relatively quiet and not done a whole lot with it in the past year or two, like, they are the one with that, I think personally, holds all the cards, because they're the ones that can keep on bringing in money. I'm actually going to disagree a little bit with what Christian said. I do think that it's actually a smart move for them to be expanding their audience outside the core gamer. I think Hearthstone actually did a really good job of that, and I do think that the Diablo mobile game will actually do the same thing.
That's why I was saying this is not what makes business sense. This is what I personally want. Yeah. Like, of course, if they want to make money, absolutely, mobile it up.
But the reason I say that is because the impression I get is that Blizzard has... I mentioned earlier when I was going through the news that Destiny had all those milestones that they had to deliver and everything, and so there was a lot of pressure inside of Bungie to deliver that stuff to Activision Blizzard. I get the impression that the Blizzard development teams are pretty much on a similar milestone schedule, and it's really falling apart because Blizzard's never been the kind of company that just goes and pushes something out because they hit their deadline. They would always put more time into it because it needed that polish. But then you go and look at what happened with Battle for Azeroth and the fact that it came out and everybody was calling it beta for Azerite, which was really actually quite an appropriate name for it, and very funny. But it feels to me like the Blizzard team is struggling right now because they are on that kind of milestone system and it's just not working for them.
Yeah.
But if they have the kind of non-core gamer content coming out that's fairly cheap and quick to put out, and it gets a lot of money from a lot of people that aren't just, that small core gamer audience, that can potentially give Blizzard the freedom to operate without having to worry about those milestones. It gives them the operating money that they can just keep on putting more time into development, and making the really excellent games that they want to make. I almost get the impression that the big project MMO that they were working on that failed them, that eventually kind of turned into Overwatch, may have actually scared Activision in a way, because I can only imagine how much money they sunk into that MMO before going, this thing's just not fun.
Yeah.
So it's a really complicated situation with Activision and Blizzard, and I just get the impression that what needs to happen is Blizzard needs to have more freedom, and Activision should just probably die.
Just go and die in a fire. Yeah, absolutely. I don't know. I think that, they did used to have this pattern where they'd only hold like a BlizzCon every other year, and then they gradually moved to doing it every year, and that sort of ramps up the customer expectations in terms of the content drip becoming a steady, flow. And they almost need to reset that expectation and sort of, double down on their commitment to all of their existing games and make sure that people are confident that there's still going to be lots of cool content coming in, that they're not going anywhere, but then sort of retreat into a small state of dormancy to just work on the stuff that has to get them across the next major sort of line. Because if they rush it and it comes out crap, then that's going to completely destroy their brand. So BlizzCon
last year was honestly one of those years where I think it would have been better for them if they reiterated that old Blizzard line we've heard from them before when they've skipped a year for BlizzCon, and actually told their core fan base, we're not doing BlizzCon this year because we don't have anything super exciting to tell you about, but we are working on super exciting stuff.
Yep.
And then if they came back this year and had really, really cool stuff to talk about, everybody would be excited. But instead, last year's BlizzCon was not great.
Yeah.
It really wasn't. And that's completely disregarding the overreaction to the Diablo mobile announcement thing. But, like, yeah, I do think that they need to go back to that old school Blizzard, as far as Blizzard development goes, that old school method of just not talking about stuff until they're 100% happy with it, and not going and doing a BlizzCon until they're 100% content that they've got stuff to talk about. And yeah, I just kind of get the impression that that's the Activision Blizzard influence of we have to have a whole bunch of milestones and push out content every year.
Yep, I completely agree. I do not have a huge amount of confidence in what they've got planned this year, unless there's something fairly remarkable that we do not know anything about.
Yeah.
So we'll see. All right, well, ActiBlizz, let's shelve them for now and move on. So next cab off the rank, we've got Ubisoft. Now, Christian, you are probably the one of us that has most recently been in Ubisoft land as far as experiencing the recent Assassin's Creed content. So,
but somewhat. I mean, I was playing Origins, wasn't playing Odyssey, but
Origins, I think, is still sort of representative of where the company's been at in terms of a resurgent approach focused to quality in the last few years, though. So,
yeah,
I don't know. Like, Ubisoft for me is one of those ones where I'm not going to recommend anything radically different to what they're currently doing, because what they're currently doing actually seems to be working pretty fucking well. So
yeah, that's 100% what I've got here.
Yeah. So yeah, like, I think the two major parts of that, if I was to sort of boil it down to the clear factors, are number one, their ongoing commitment to their live games, like their games as a service, not giving up on them when they have rough receptions on initial launch. The fact that they've gone back to Division 2, they've gone back to Rainbow Six Siege, they've gone back to For Honor, and actually rescued those games, from a state of, initial sort of bad reception or controversy even when they've launched to really strong sort of player-based live service games that have gotten a lot of praise after the fact for the content that's been added to them and the sort of attention to detail and focus that's been put into their subsequent sort of DLCs and sort of ongoing events. That's the sort of stuff they need to keep doing, because they've gotten this almost new reputation for being really good at doing that in recent years. And yeah. I think that's something they need to keep banking on hard. So it's one of the things that whenever I see a new Ubisoft game coming out, and Division 2 is going to be this for me in the next month or two, I'm actually a whole bunch more confident about Division 2 because of the fact that I know that they are doing this now, and that when a game launches a little bit rough, it's by no length a dead or forgotten game. Like, it's something that they'll keep on working at until they get it right. So yeah, and that's good. And some of the other stuff that they have had going on for many, many years that has sort of been the easy win push button franchises like your Call of Duties and your Battlefields, particularly in this case, their one, which is Assassin's Creed, that now seems to be back in vogue because they've actually had that required break to refocus and redouble their efforts on making it a really good quality game again, rather than one that they just pump out rapidly every year. So now we've got that break again while they sort of go to the next incarnation of that after two very successful releases in the form of Origins and Odyssey. And I'm super thrilled to find out what they come back with for that franchise. Like, I will not blink at the idea of playing a new Assassin's Creed game if this is what they're going to continue to do, because I think that they're really killing it at the moment. So yeah, I'm feeling pretty good about Ubisoft.
I think Far Cry needs the Assassin's Creed treatment.
Oh, absolutely.
I think they need to push Far Cry away, let it like rejuvenate itself, come up with something new, and then bring it back, because I think that's getting a bit tired.
Yeah. I kind of get the impression with Ubisoft, like, of all the publishers here, like, the more I was thinking about it, it was like, if I was CEO at Ubisoft, I'd probably not be that concerned. But if I was the CEO at any of the others, EA, Bethesda, or Activision Blizzard, I'd actually be really shitting my pants right now. I do think that all those other publishers are the ones that are greater at risk. And part of the reason why is that Ubisoft has a massive library of IP. They have all the Tom Clancy stuff to draw from, and the huge variety of different games that they've always gone and created around that franchise. There's some stuff in there where they take big financial risks. Like, I do think the Division 2 is actually a big financial risk because it's an established IP that I don't think has actually recovered from its bad reputation. Not because the content that they continue to do in the Division 1 was bad, but because all the players that had a bad opinion of Division 1 won't necessarily know about all the good stuff they did after release. And plus, a game like The Division is just massively, massively expensive to develop. Yeah. Same goes for Assassin's Creed Odyssey and revitalizing it. But the reason I wouldn't be worried is because they just have this huge library. Like, there's all those shitty games on 3DS that they've gone and developed in past, which is annoying as hell, but at the same time, those things make money. Those things make bank. So the fact that they have those to rely upon, it's almost like they've got their own self-made safety net. They could just go and start porting those things to Switch and just basically relax, pretty much.
And they just make Just Dance every year, and that goes through.
Exactly.
Yeah. Just one new Nintendo partnership per year, I think, would be a good one to keep doing as well.
Oh yeah.
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 Because the Mario Rabbids partnership, that was one that just looked like a trash fire until we realized that, holy shit, this is actually really good.
Yeah.
And Starlink Battle for Atlas, as it turns out, has actually been really popular, really well received. So
I've seen so many game devs saying that Starlink Battle for Atlas is amazing. And these are adult game devs. It's not like they're kids playing it or anything like that. They're talking about it actually being really fun.
Yeah.
I think the only other thing, if I was running Ubisoft, is I'd be keeping a very, very close eye on Beyond Good and Evil 2.
Yeah.
Because I get huge Fable-esque Peter Molyneux flashbacks whenever I see somebody up on stage talking about Beyond Good and Evil 2. Like, Beyond Good and Evil 1 was a super simple linear platformer game, and it had a freaking brilliant story, and it was horrendously underrated. But what the hell is Beyond Good and Evil 2? It's
odd.
So many things, and that worries me. It feels almost unfocused.
It's the Death Stranding of Ubisoft.
Yeah, kinda. Like, I mean, quite honestly, we know more about what actually is the game than compared to Death Stranding. Like, I at least know that Beyond Good and Evil 2 will have platforming, and it will have combat, and it will have, like, this space combat, which is kind of neat, but bizarre in a Beyond Good and Evil game. I can't tell you what Death Stranding has.
No. Absolutely.
So I've got just a couple more thoughts on what I'd like Ubisoft to do. So one thing I'd like them to do is put out more UbiArt games. So the UbiArt engine is like a 2.5D game engine that they made Rayman Legends, Child of Light, Valiant Hearts, and a couple of other like smaller titles. But since I think Valiant Hearts might have been the last one, they haven't done anything else with that engine. So make some more, smaller games, and that'd be nice. And I want, with Assassin's Creed, I want them to turn Assassin's Creed into the Avengers of the video game industry. So, because I think one of the strengths of Assassin's Creed has always been the protagonists, and it has this kind of time element to it as well, different time periods. I want them to reinvest in the overarching storyline. A lot of people say pull it out completely and just make them historical games, but I actually always really liked the sort of top-level modern-day narrative in Assassin's Creed. Yeah. And I want them to do like a phase of games where they have like 3 or 4 different protagonists over 6 years worth of games, and it all leads up to them like meeting in some weird time shenanigans and having like a massive adventure together, like the Avengers,
like they did with the Ezio arc sort of thing.
The characters never really met. Like they interacted. Like Ezio and Altair had like a weird kind of slight interaction, but nothing like I want. I want them to actually like meet somehow with weird time shenanigans.
Interesting. Yeah, that would be very cool.
So you did mention something there, Christian, that I'm going to totally latch onto. Okay, if I was a CEO, make the UbiArt engine open source and available to indies, because it's currently not, and it's a gorgeous engine, but release it and basically say that if you develop anything inside the UbiArt engine, we publish it for you. It gets published with the Ubisoft name on it, and basically make a deal with indies that use the UbiArt engine to do that shit, because that is an untapped potential they've got right there. And I if it was available and ready for their developers internally to use, I can't imagine it's that far off from it being something that could be used by the general public of indie developers. So that's super potential right there.
So my final declaration as CEO of Ubisoft would be to apply the Scorched Earth policy to the Crew franchise. Fucking burn it to the ground, salt the earth, do not ever speak of it again. Crew 2, what a fucking piece of crap.
Same for me, but Watch Dogs.
Oh, no, I don't agree with that.
Yep.
I don't agree with
Salt
that.
the earth with Watch Dogs, fuck it.
Watch Dogs 2 was
franchise.
great.
Yeah,
Shit game.
It was so good.
I don't think Watch Dogs, 3 is coming anytime soon, though, despite what people suspect. Because today's current age, the satire that exists in real life is a little too rich to try and recreate in a video game at this point. So I don't know. It's going to be weird. I'm super keen to see what happens with Skull and Bones, actually. That's the next big one I've got my eye on from Ubi. So actual parody action that, again, doesn't repeat the same mistakes as Sea of Thieves. That would be good to see. But I don't know. We will find out later in the year, perhaps. It'll be interesting. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And one last one. What do we got?
We've got EA as our last publisher to talk about today. Now, EA is one that I did a bunch of research on and really looked into their internal teams and what their strategy has been so far, and kind of came up with some crazy ideas that you'll all balk at and think are ridiculous, but they're just crazy ideas. So at the moment, their current strategy is focused a lot on streaming and subscription-based stuff. So there was a statement from their CFO, Blake Jorgensen, that said a combination of live services such as FIFA Ultimate Team and subscriptions will lead to uncapped monetization of players over the longest possible period of time.
That is the worst sounding business wank I've ever heard.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I want to shoot that guy out of a cannon into the sun.
Yeah.
And I want to abandon that completely. So
I second this motion. Does the vote carry?
Yes, do it.
Carries. All right.
Yeah.
Get the cannon.
Yep.
Now, what they have their Origin Access and their EA Access program, which is their subscription-based thing. And I think that's fine, but I would actually turn that into a sports-only game service. So I'd lump Madden, NHL, FIFA, NBA Live, UFC, and et cetera into a subscription-based bro gamer kind of thing.
Yep.
And I would spin that off from their other games, because I think their other games deserve to be purchased as full-price games. And okay, so now I'm gonna drop the bomb, which is what this is all leading up to, which is they need to scale back Origin as a platform, turn it into a simple launcher, and then partner with Valve and put all of their games exclusively on Steam.
Okay.
I can see the logic here.
So this is them fighting back against. So this is them approaching Valve and saying, "Look, Valve, with the Epic Games Store, you're under pressure. We can join forces. Give me a better revenue cut than you give to other publishers, and I'll put my games on Steam. I also want access to your Vive tech, and I want to get some help developing VR games."
I can see the marketing sort of logo for this move now. You can't have Steam without EA.
Yeah. Put EA in the middle there. Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Interesting.
This is a terrible idea. I love it.
No, it's fantastic.
Oh, look, it makes sense from a competitive standpoint, because they're going to have to start to leverage those connections sooner or later to, have a different proposition to their big competitors. So yeah, I don't know, makes sense.
And so I'll quickly run. I'll let you guys have your piece too, but I'm just going to run through some games that I'd like them to make and how I want them to handle their franchises. So for BioWare, they're going to get Anthem out. That's done and dusted. After BioWare, I want them to make Knights of the Old Republic 3.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay. DICE, Battlefield, Titanfall.
Yep.
So it's a massive map multiplayer Titanfall Battlefield hybrid.
Oh, okay. You mean doing something similar to those combined games, or actually combining the franchises for realsies?
Actually combining them. So Battlefield : Titanfall.
Ooh, okay.
So that's the subtitle of the game, and that'll be made by DICE. That wouldn't be made by Respawn. But yeah, that'll be using the the Titanfall setting and like the mechs and everything, and making it a Battlefield game. I think that'd be awesome.
So we're going to go one step further and say that 100 Titans drop onto a planet and go in that kind of direction, or
Why not? Why not? They already had the last Titan standing as one of their modes, so just scale that up.
okay.
I will say, like, that one of my points here is, like, they literally have too many internally competing IPs. Because you've got Battlefield, Battlefront, and Titanfall, which are basically all first-person shooters. And Titanfall 2 got completely dicked over because they released it right near Battlefront and Call of Duty. Like, right in the middle of the two of them.
Yeah.
Just, it almost feels like they need to merge their IPs together a little bit like that so that they don't have that competition and they can bring Titanfall fans over to the kind of Battlefield formula. I actually really like that idea.
Interesting.
And so I mentioned VR as well. So I want them to make SimCity VR.
Oh.
Because I think that like top-down, like disembodied viewpoint VR games are actually kind of the best VR games sometimes, like with Astrobot. So I want you to be like the god over your SimCity. I think that'd be awesome. So they're gonna make SimCity VR with Vive, with their Valve partnership, and they're gonna make a Jedi VR game as well, where you've got lightsabers, like Beat Saber style, and maybe a Dead Space VR game as well, because why not?
Huh.
And then
Dead
my
Space
final
would
thing,
be good.
Dead Space would be good. My final thing, they're bringing back Red Alert, and they're making it a big esports title.
Yes. Yep. You got me on board for that. Holy shit, yes. Bring back Joe Coogan to play like a super old version of Kane. Just ham it completely up. I don't know if that guy's even alive still. He must be, surely. Yeah. He's off in a cryo chamber somewhere with Tiberium planted into his skull.
That's my stupid wish list for EA. What do you guys got?
EA is really interesting because they have a whole lot of IP, but they're not doing a lot with it at the moment. Outside of their sport franchises, and like, so in this case, I'm thankful for those sport franchises because they're always going to make money. They're always going to make bank, and you can just rely on spitting out a new one every single year. I hate that sort of development, but at the same time, it makes money, and as long as within that annual cycle, like if we can have 2 development teams working on it, you know, you work on the one that's 2 years away, and you finish off the one that's 1 year away, and then you'll leapfrog or whatever.
Is EA still doing the official WWE titles? That's 2K. Oh, it's 2K. Okay, that's a shame. Because I was going to say that would be an opportunity for them to improve one of their offerings, but if it's 2K, then that's different. So
I mean, they have been experimenting, I believe. Like I think EA is responsible for one of the NBA titles that has a bit more of a story mode, if I'm not mistaken.
It was actually directed by
that was the long shot stuff. Yeah.
Spike Jones?
Yeah.
They had like a single player basketball story directed by Spike Jones.
Yeah, but I think that EA is one of those companies that makes massive investments into really huge games, and then it blows up in their face when those games don't take off the way they want them to. And it worries me when they're really going all out with Anthem. I would be really genuinely concerned about that. I've expressed my concern in past episodes, in fact.
Spike Lee. Sorry, not Spike Jones. Spike Lee. Sorry,
That's all
man.
good. I think that my personal wish, like all those things that you brought up are great, but they've got all the Maxis games and everything, and we haven't had a bunch of good sim games in ages. Like, go out and just say, okay, we're bringing back Sim Ant. And bring that to PC and everything. Completely modern Sim Ant. But the other thing about all the Maxis titles is that when Maxis was at their peak and making their best possible games, they were fairly low cost. And there was a lot of potential in there for them to kind of go and explore. Like, I've always been of the opinion on the development end that having good limitations actually makes better games, because you try to work out how to make the best possible thing within the budget that you have or within the time that you have. But it's this really bad habit, and I think EA is one of the biggest publishers responsible for doing it, is this idea of, hey, we'll give you a year to make another really amazing sports game that's going to outsell the one you did last year. It's just not enough time. It's unrealistic expectations, and EA is just terrible at it. But yeah, I think they need to tap into that old IP they've currently got. Let's make Spore, but make it not shit. That would be amazing. I think that there's a lot of stuff that they're doing with their, like, The Sims is super popular and The Sims makes bank. There's clearly a market for games like that. And currently EA is the only one that's really doing anything in that sort of space. So cling on to that, do more stuff that is Sims-esque within that space. And Maxis was perfect for that sort of development. They need to make smaller, more affordable titles that do not need massive teams with massive budgets. And the unfortunate thing is that that's pretty much most of their IP. And most of their games are just ridiculously huge and expensive to develop. They're just gambling every single time they work on something like that. And yeah, more games outside their core audience. I think The Sims does a really good job of getting in people that are, again, I've mentioned it a lot. I think that they need to expand outside of the core gamer audience and get more people in to actually have that sort of stability. And they do that fairly well with their sports titles and The Sims, but I think they can do more. And continue to invest in indies, basically, because indies are fairly cheap and you always essentially roll the dice on something becoming massively popular. So,
yeah. I have a few revolutionary game ideas that I think could really pull EA out of any trouble they're currently in and get them back into the limelight again in a very effective way. So listen to these titles. Battlefield Command and Conquer. So turn the Command and Conquer setting, or Red Alert if you prefer, into an actual Battlefield style shooter, but use all of the characters and forces and themes existing in the Command and Conquer games, like all the Tesla tech and GDI tech and, you know, your assassination type characters and, you know, all of those kinds of, you know, covert missions that actually lead out onto much bigger conflicts that are taking place. I reckon that would be really friggin' cool. So,
okay.
Yeah.
We have just confirmed that Luke is the CEO that sits in with the development team and says, my son really likes Mario Kart. It'd be great if he did a kart racer.
You know what? There's good ideas here, damn it. All right, and next one, The Sims MMO.
I thought of that too. I was thinking what to do with The Sims, and I was like, is an MMO appropriate? And
absolutely.
Yeah,
I think there's two directions they could take with all the Sims stuff, honestly. Like, one is take The Sims as it currently stands as Sims 4, make a new version of that, call it Sims World or whatever you want, and actually make it like a live service game so that people are interacting with each other over the internet instead of being in your own walled garden. Because I think the game is fantastic in the way that it simulates the whole sort of doll's house, sort of, you know, manner of playing games like that. But the lack of interactivity with other real players, I think, is a real limiting factor. They could make that
like Second
so
Life.
huge. But it's not, because Second Life has all this other sort of, you know, greasy shit that comes with it. This is very wholesome. So...
people would make this as dirty as they can.
Oh, I'm sure they would.
Go buy Linden Labs and then just make Sim and Life and just, you know, make sure that people can't create dicks for their Sims. Like, there you go.
Well, the other thing they could do too, and this is something they experimented with sort of way back in the era of Sims 2 and I think it was SimCity 2000. Where you actually had those two games combined. So you could actually create settings in SimCity that you were then able to actually import your Sims into to actually sort of play that level of the game sort of zoomed in on the characters themselves. And I think combining those two again would be a really, really cool way of expanding out that franchise and making it, you know, infinitely customizable. So
I would actually say that probably the better way to go about it would be it was one of the SimCity games where you could actually have neighbor cities that were other players playing those cities. And that was super neat because then you could focus on one thing and do trade with them for another. Just like rather than saying, okay, well, I am playing my sim, just have it so that you can say, hey, I want to put a friend's household in this space on my map. And then whenever your friend is playing and you can see your Sims interacting together or something, that's just ripe with potential for the next Sims game.
Yep.
I think that's a really good idea.
Yeah. No, I totally think so as well. So, I mean, the only other thing I've got to say about EA generally is that I think that Anthem going well is going to be fairly significant for them. So,
yeah,
I think all eyes are going to be on at the beginning of this year because if BioWare ends up being yet another studio that goes the way of the dodo at the hands of poor handling by EA, then that's going to do more damage than things like the Battlefront loot box controversy, like, you know, the Star Wars games being shuttered, like all of that recent stuff. I think this would be a much, much bigger sort of nail in, you know, their potential future coffin if they mishandle this. So they've got an opportunity to really pull it out and do something wonderful. But it's a big risk, big reward thing at the moment, because if they fuck it up, man, it's going to look super bad for them. So
if they have to close BioWare at any stage, that is massively bad, because that's a huge number of their core players that play EA games.
Yeah.
They'll just be out the window, and they will have to find another company that makes something equivalent, which doesn't really exist.
Yep, I would agree. So yeah, it's make or break for them this year, I think. It's going to, really make a big difference depending on how that goes. But I think that Battlefield is another one of those franchises in particular that could probably do with like an off year to sort of refocus and come back stronger. Because pushing it out every year and competing with your COD at the same time, it seems to be a slightly different story each year in terms of who pulls slightly ahead and who doesn't. But it's at the cost of both of them. They need to take a break and design better games and not rely on the push button every single year pushing the same shit out. It's just not going to keep up forever. So, yeah. That's my thoughts anyway. So, anything sort of in closing to add? I think we've covered a fair bit of stuff for those four. That's some very interesting stories going on at the moment for sure.
We did briefly mention Bungie, and I think that we'd be remiss if we didn't actually follow up on briefly saying what we think Bungie should do with Destiny.
Yeah. Make Destiny 3 and make it really fucking good.
Yeah. I think they need to make Destiny 3, and they need to... they can probably keep in a lot of the stuff that I imagine was Activision influenced, like the microtransaction system that is in the game, and keep it purely cosmetic. Because I don't think that they're going to get any sort of dramas if they release Destiny 3 and that system is still in there. I think that people would just expect it to be there. But they've been doing a lot of stuff that is definitely more customer positive, even recently in Destiny. But Destiny 3, make it a really, really good game. Take your time making it, Bungie. And yeah, kick ass, please.
Well, it was one of your predictions this year that we might be getting an announcement for a Destiny 3. Now that this split has happened, I'm thinking and I'm hoping that maybe that announcement will not happen this year and that'll be another year out at least. So
I am more certain now that what we will get might at least be a teaser, because I suspect, and I hope I'm wrong, but I suspect that the 3 seasons they've announced going forward for Destiny 2 is it. That's what we're going to get for Destiny 2, and that's when the live team is going to be starting to focus on content for Destiny 3. So I think that we're going to have a content drought for Destiny 2 for a while, and I really hope that basically mid next year we're getting another Destiny game, because otherwise we'll have been over 6 months without content. Or they're going to have to scramble their live team to make something new after that 3rd season. But I am almost certain that those 3 seasons are set up to lead us into Destiny 3.
Hope so. Yeah. Interesting. All right. Christian, anything you want to add to anything at this point? Feeling good?
No, I think I've said my piece.
So you're feeling good in your CEO spot? You don't think you're going to be ousted in a corporate coup anytime soon?
Oh, I think I'm driving them all into bankruptcy, but I'm getting good games out of it.
Absolutely.
You've already got your 15 million.
Yeah,
that's right.
we should probably just cap off as a disclaimer at the end of this entire segment to say that we three are obviously consumers, first and foremost, whilst, some of us, Matt in particular, do have some experience in the other side of the fence. We largely like to think we know what we're talking about, probably don't know shit, and there's people in positions that have been doing this far longer than us that actually know a whole bunch of stuff and, probably make mistakes every now and then, but God knows we'd probably make more in their position too. So
Fuck that. Hire me as CEO. I'll fix all your problems.
Love the confidence. All right. Well, anyway, if you have your own ideas about what you could do as CEO in the case of any of these 4 companies, let us know, because it would be a really cool conversation to continue pushing on. So you can hit us up at all the usual spots. So mail@partyloaded.com. We do chat on Facebook, so look for Party Loaded there, at Party Loaded Show on Twitter. And, of course, you can find our content on all the usual places, all of which are linked from channelendgame.com. So you'll find our Twitch links and YouTube links and everything there. So save yourself the trouble of remembering a whole bunch of things and just go to the hub. It's a good way to jump off. So, that's all for tonight. So we've got our content for the next few weeks planned out, some topics I'm really looking forward to discussing. Gaming-wise, between now and then, Christian, I'm going to commit to you tonight that I'm going to spend the majority of my week coming up doing some warframing. So
Yay.
I hope you are available to team up with, because I want to actually push ahead and get some of this content done.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah,
I'll be around for sure.
absolutely. Matt, anything interesting on the pipe for you?
I was actually watching some of the Good Games Done Quick that was on this past week, and I caught people playing Celeste. And I already have Celeste installed, so I'm kind of thinking I might boot that up a little bit.
It's really good. Spoiler alert. You'll like it.
Otherwise, this conversation has also made me go, somebody in our group needs to play Assassin's Creed Odyssey. So
I kind of think
have
so.
that, yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, my girlfriend bought that for me for Christmas, and she's been giving me eyes because she wants me to play it.
It was one of the games that was gifted to me, so...
Well, look, I'll make this commitment now that if both of you start playing that game, I will go and instantly purchase it and play it alongside. I would be very keen to do that.
I will install it now.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, no, it looks super cool. Listening to some of the Giant Bomb Game of the Year discussions, which went into a little bit of spoilery territory as far as the weird stuff in that game goes. There was some things that really perked my ears up and got me thinking, holy crap, this sounds amazing. So, yeah. Sounds good. All right, well, in the meantime, thank you everybody for listening. That's been a fun ride for us again once more tonight. Hope you've enjoyed the show. You'll catch everything next week at the same time, same channel, same show. This is Party Loaded. Thank you very much for tonight. That's it. Good night.
Good night, gang.
The Party Loaded podcast is a Channel Endgame production. For this and more great gaming content, bookmark channelendgame.com.